bless us as we mine the great riches of this terrific passage.
Scripture doesn't say that you should use, for instance, incense or images in your worship. It doesn't say you should use interpretive dance. There may be places for some of those things other than a worship context, but we are the servants, not the master. The master is the one that dictates how he wants to get the glory. So we have sort of a Puritan style of worship, very simple, elegant, has an appropriate decorum, but it's not flashy. I'm not opposed at all. I like stained glass windows. I am opposed to stained glass windows with images of Jesus in them, because that's a violation of one of the Ten Commandments. You shall not worship graven images. Doesn't mean so much to us, but it meant a whole lot of people, to a lot of people a few hundred years ago. They understood that. But you got to be careful not to go too far the other way either and make it where it's just so simple that you can't even tell that it's a church.
In the Middle Ages, when you entered a Gothic cathedral, you were meant to experience the vision of the New Jerusalem described by John in Revelation 21. And it's a text worth reading because it's a very visual text. He's describing a vision, but he describes it in very vivid terms. I think it's important to emphasize here that when you talk about the sacred being made visible, you're really talking about experiencing the sacred, and it's not just through vision that you do it. A few hundred years down the road comes the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century, and there is a radical shift in the idea of what constitutes church with a little c.
When the Reformation happened in 1517, obviously what happens out of that, not Luther himself, is, you know, the use of not having icons anyway. I mean, just completely getting rid of them. So the focus is not on the imagery, the focus is on the service, which has its benefits. But as far as the imagery, it's very, very much lost, and you really see a paring down of that. You see a paring down of a lot of those enhancements, those visual enhancements, which is unfortunate for people like myself who are visual, whether, it doesn't matter what religion I am, but I'm particularly visual because that's the field that I'm in, so I like to see those things at the same time, and they help to reinforce or remind you of certain stories or things, and help to keep that sort of nice meditative basis going. So I see it as a problem, but also see it as a good thing in a way, because people are more involved in what's happening by taking certain pieces like that away.
Some churches you walk in and you wouldn't even know you're in a church, other than perhaps a cross or some stained glass windows. Other churches would be full of artwork and crosses and crucifixes and candles and images of Mary and the saints, and you know they would find this helpful for their senses to draw upon, and whereas some branches of Christianity just rely upon the auditory sense of hearing a sermon or worshiping in you know, with songs and music, etc., and not actually seeing objects.
Anyway, the key word here is experience. The medieval Christian coming to a Gothic cathedral, coming to worship there, experienced the divine, experienced the presence of God, however you want to state that. But it involves all of the senses. There was the sense of smell, the incense that was a part of the worship. There was the music, appealing to the sense of hearing. And then the most important part of the service, of the Mass, was receiving the Eucharist, taking the cup and the bread. And there you're actually tasting, you're using that sense, the wine and the wafer. And even the sense of touch. A pilgrim coming to a medieval cathedral might get down on his knees and climb stairs. All of the senses are involved in worship, and I think for me that is what constitutes authentic worship. Whether you're talking about contemporary worship today or worship in the Middle Ages, the worshiper has to experience it. He can't just be a spectator. You must experience the worship.